Hi, everyone, and welcome to our second last weekly wrap up. I'm coming to you this afternoon from lovely Bairnsdale in Victoria's Gippsland region, right down in the southeast corner of Victoria. I'm here on a Paddle Victoria marathon kayak 3-day training camp, and I've currently done about 30 Ks of kayaking in the last 2 days, and my hands and body are feeling it. I'm pretty tired. But it's all good. It's been really great. It's been really good fun. So just a quick wrap up this week. There's not a lot new to share with you, really just bringing you up to date on where we're at and what's coming for the last week. So the same format as the other weeks, where we're at, our focus and actions for week 8, taking you through the protocol for this week's optional HIIT session if you want to do it, looking at the HRV data trends, and finally, just giving you a bit of a heads up on some of the specific questions I want to ask you in this week's Pulse survey, which won't come out either until Monday night or Tuesday morning, just because I'm away and I haven't, it's going to be tough to get the time to get it all done in time for tomorrow. So we are at the end of week 7, which means there's only 1 week to go. Week 7, hopefully we were focused, hopefully everybody had a chance to either continue with extending the biofeedback sessions, or if you hadn't done it last week, had a chance to have a go at it this week and see what it feels like. We had another optional HIIT session, as well as practicing an oar walk. I've actually had lots of opportunities to appreciate the awe of nature over the last couple of days, being on the rivers around Gippsland, and it's just absolutely stunning. There was a moment yesterday when we were paddling back towards our starting point. We'd gone upstream first, and we were turning around and coming back downstream, and I was looking down the river into a vista in the background of Mount Borbor, and it was absolutely stunning. So that was, I didn't take any photos though, because obviously I'm on the water and it's a bit of a challenge, but really just beautiful. This week, being our final week, it really is about coming back down into recovery. We'll do one final session where we'll learn some new variations, and then our second GMB session will just be to check back in and assess all those basic positions that we started with and see what feels different. I'm really confident that for all of you, when we go back in to just revisiting those basic positions, you'll be like, wow, that feels really different. You should really be able to feel an extension and growth in strength, flexibility and control after 8 consistent weeks of practice that you've been doing. And maintaining your practices. Really what we want to be getting to this week is a sense that these are habits that you've now embedded that will just continue beyond the 8 weeks of this program. That's the intent of the design, and hopefully that's what you're feeling. We do have a new HIIT session this week. The new protocol is playing with effort to recovery and reducing the recovery through a series of repetitions. So sticking with 20 seconds of effort, we want to go through 20 seconds effort, 2 minutes recovery, which is what we did last week. Then coming into another 20 seconds of effort with 1 minute recovery, then another 20 seconds of effort with only 30 seconds of recovery. And that's one set. And so then I want you to repeat that set up to 3 times only. This is a recovery week. We are bringing down the volume. So I do want, whatever you did last week, the total time, add up your total time so that it's less than what you did last week. So that might mean for some of you that's only a 1 rep through with a 5 minutes warm up and 5 minutes cool down. For some of you that might be 2 times, and some of you that might be 3 times. So that's the HIIT protocol for this week. Looking at our HRV data, I've done something a little bit different this week, and I've created an average of each week for everybody. So it just smooths out the graphs a little bit. It makes it easier to see the overall trends. Plus, now that we've got so much data coming up to 8 weeks, I was really having to do 1 graph per slide, and it just felt like it was more than we needed at this point. So you can see here in the top left-hand corner, this is our heart rate and our HRV data. And I think it's quite helpful here to see that we can really see for everybody kind of, you know, there was a bit of a peak around week 4, week 5 with HRV up and heart rate down. But what's pleasing to see is that the dip that we saw in week 6 has been sort of arrested, and so week 7 has plateaued a little bit at that low point, and week 7 has plateaued a bit at that higher point around our resting heart rate for our morning readiness. So, you know, we may see next week, being week 8, having had a bigger week, and, you know, not a huge week because I did bring the volume a little bit down in week 7, but we may see some recovery this week, or we may see it continuing to stay a bit plateaued. And I will continue to have a look at it beyond the 8 weeks to see what happens, for those of you who are going to continue monitoring your data. And I will share, I think it's just started raining and I have washing on the line, great. And I will share that, continue to share it with you just in a short, you know, little email update. So that's the overall. Then the other 3 graphs are the graphs that sit underneath that. So we've got our RMSSD, which is the red line, and our SDNN. So RMSSD being the space between heartbeats, and SDNN being the standard deviation around that. And again, we can see a similar trend where, you know, we had a bit of a peak in week 5, and then it's dropped off week 6, but we've arrested that drop off in week 7, which is encouraging. High frequency power at morning, which is an indication of the strength of the parasympathetic nervous system, really showed a peak in week 3 with a little bit of a peak again in week 5, and dropping off again. That the extent of the drop off has decreased this week, but it has dropped off a little bit more. I would really like to see that go up ideally. So let's see what happens over the next couple of weeks. And then finally, our coefficient of variation, which is, you know, the variation from day to day in those scores. And that has climbed, you know, climbed a little bit again this week, which again, I'm not surprised by, because we are continuing to challenge your systems with new moves. I also know this week there was one of our team members had COVID. There were a few people traveling, which will always interrupt the readings or the data, as well as some big nights had by people on the alcohol, which will also significantly impact scores. So context trumps content all the time. You know, I've designed a program that exists in kind of in absence of the content of the context that people are living within. So we need to look at this data within that broader context of the overall group. But, you know, interesting to see. Let's see what happens over the next couple of weeks. I've already shared the pulse data, so I'm not going to share that today. The last thing, I'm going to do the pulse survey again this week, but I'm going to ask you specifically for how valuable you think some of these changes will be. And I've got some changes under 5 headings of the preparation and setup for the program, the structure for the program, communication and materials, a few things around the exercise sessions, and one other. So there's a total of 15 changes I'm thinking of making. And before I go ahead and make all of those changes, I'd really like your thoughts on how valuable you think they would be. I don't want to invest a whole lot of time if the feedback from you as the pilot cohort group, look, you know, great, it's a great idea, but I don't think it would make a huge difference. I don't think it would really add to the value. So I'm not going to read through all 15 of those here, but just to let you know they're coming in this week's pulse, and I'll ask you for, like, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, highly valuable, not valuable at all, where you think they sit. And a final reminder, please, if you have people who you think would be interested in an October intake, please contact me or send me their details. I do need to start doing some promotion of that, so I've got a 4-week lead in, and I will kick the program off in the last week of October. which will give me a good 8 weeks into pre-Christmas, with sort of finishing around the 16th of December, so not going too close to Christmas. I think it's a really good time for people to engage in some practices to round out the year, particularly coming into a bit of a crazy, silly season where they'll be really putting their systems under pressure anyway. I don't expect, given the context of pre-Christmas, necessarily for the data to show fantastic results, but hopefully the practices will help people manage that season better and go into Christmas and the holidays, rather than feeling so completely exhausted and burnt out as we often do, maybe a little bit more resilient and relaxed for the holidays, ready to have a nice break. I will do another intake then in early Feb as got your New Year's resolutions, let's kick off the new year on a really strong note to establish some good practices. So that's it for this week. Thank you, everyone. Please keep it up for week 8. Please work on extending those biofeedback breathing sessions and making some consistent practice in that breath work. It's certainly, I've really upped my breath work in the last couple of weeks, along with upping my kayak training. And I really do feel like it's helping me to absorb that training load and maintain my ability to continue to train. Today, at the end of the training section, I did 20 minutes of post-workout recovery because I just felt so exhausted. And, a couple of hours later, I'm actually feeling pretty well recovered and ready to paddle again tomorrow. So that's it from me today. Keep an eye out for the pulse survey, probably Tuesday, and I will see you all hopefully on Tuesday for our final new GMB movements. Thanks, everyone. See you later.